Girls who laughed when he cried. What happened when he smiled and never looked back? Story 1. I laughed when he cried the first time. Not a cute giggle, an ugly, sharp laugh like I was watching a bad actor overdo his lines. We were in my kitchen, and he'd just told me his dad was back in rehab. He looked embarrassed for even saying it, like the words were something sticky. "Why are you making this a me problem?" I said. Then I laughed again because the silence after was so awkward I wanted to fill it with anything. He blinked like I'd slapped him. He nodded, wiped his face, and went home. I expected the usual. Paragraphs, apologies, him begging to be understood. Instead, he went quiet. Not the silent treatment. The kind of quiet that feels like you're talking to a wall you didn't realize was there. 2 weeks later, I ran into him at a grocery store. He was holding a basket with stupid healthy stuff. Ginger, broth, oranges. He looked lighter, like he'd taken off a backpack I'd been sitting on. I did my little routine. "Hey, stranger, you just disappear now?" He smiled. A real one. Warm, polite, harmless. "Hey, yeah, I'm good." It was the smile that panicked me. No sadness behind it. No softness left for me to step on. I followed him down an aisle like a ghost. "So you're just done?" He paused by the cereal, looked at a label, then at me. "You laughed at me when I was falling apart," he said calmly. "It helped, actually." "How is that supposed to help?" "It made it simple." He set the cereal back like it didn't matter. "I don't have to wonder what you meant." I saw it. I tried to joke it off, like always. "You're being dramatic." He chuckled, friendly. "Not hurt. Maybe. But I'm not your problem anymore." Then he walked away, still smiling, and I stood there with my phone in my hand like a weapon that suddenly had no ammo. I texted him later, something casual. "A baited hook? Miss your face." He reacted with a thumbs up. No message. Just the little blue icon. That's when it hit me. I didn't lose him in an argument. I lost him in one laugh. Story 2. The night he cried, I was in a crowded bar with my friends, and he was calling me for the 3rd time. I told him I didn't want heavy talks tonight. He kept calling anyway, so I picked up and put him on speaker like entertainment. "You promised you'd come," he said, voice cracking. "I had the appointment. I can't do it alone." My friends leaned in, already smiling. I rolled my eyes and did the meanest thing I've ever done. I laughed. "Are you serious?" "It's a dentist, not a funeral." "It's not the dentist," he whispered. "It's the evaluation. For the panic attacks," one of my friends snorted. I snorted back. We turned his pain into a punchline because I didn't want to be the girlfriend who had to deal with real life. I told him, "Stop being pathetic," and hung up. He didn't call again. For a while, I loved it. The freedom. No long talks. No, "How are you really?" questions. I told myself he was finally learning boundaries. I even bragged about it like I'd trained him. 3 months later, I saw a photo on someone's story. Him at a park, sunlight on his face, holding a coffee, smiling beside a guy I didn't recognize. The smile looked practiced, stable, like he'd learned something. I DM'd him. "Wow, new man already?" I added a laughing emoji to keep the power. He replied once. "Not new. Just safe." That word, safe, set my teeth on edge. I typed, "So I wasn't safe?" He left me on red for a full day. Then, "You were a crowd." I didn't get it until I replayed the bar moment in my head. My friends. The speakerphone. The way I'd made him perform. I wrote back a long apology, the kind you send when you want forgiveness and the door unlocked. He replied with one sentence. "I'm glad you're growing. Don't come near me while you do it." And that's the thing no one warns you about. Sometimes the consequence isn't revenge. It's peace, someone else's peace that you can't interrupt. Story 3. He cried at my graduation party. Of all places. Everyone was buzzing, congratulating me, taking pictures, and he pulled me aside near the coat closet like he was about to propose or something. "I can't do this anymore," he said, eyes glossy. "I feel like I'm disappearing next to you." I laughed because the timing was so offensively inconvenient. "Are you really doing this right now?" I said, and my laugh came out loud enough that my cousin turned to look. He flinched. "I'm serious. You always do this," I hissed, still smiling because people were nearby. "You always pick big moments to make it about your feelings." He wiped his face, looking humiliated. "I'm not trying—" I cut him off. "Go cry in your car. I'm not babysitting you tonight." He left. I didn't go after him. I posted photos. I danced. I let my friends tell me I deserved better than a sensitive guy. The next morning, I expected him to be waiting outside my apartment like he always did after a fight. He wasn't. No messages. No missed calls. Just blank. Days went by. Then a week. Then I started getting that crawling feeling like my reflection was slightly wrong. I went to his place with a coffee and my best "I'm not mad, I'm just checking in" face. His name was off the mailbox. The doormat I bought him, gone. A neighbor told me he moved. Said he needed a reset. I found him months later at a mutual friend's wedding. He was in a suit that actually fit, laughing with a group of people. When he saw me, he didn't stiffen. He didn't go cold. He just smiled, like I was someone he used to work with. I walked right up, heart pounding. So you can smile now? He looked genuinely confused for a second. Yeah, he said. Therapy helped. I scoffed. Must be nice. He nodded, still calm. It is. That calmness was the slap. I wanted him angry so I could fight. I wanted tears so I could feel powerful again. Instead, he raised his glass and said, "Congrats on graduating, by the way. You worked hard." Then he turned back to his friends like my presence had the same weight as background music. I stood there, holding my bitterness like a bouquet no one wanted. Story 4. He cried during a road trip, which felt illegal. We were 2 hours from home, stuck in traffic, and he just started shaking, hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel. "I'm not okay," he said. I haven't been okay for a while. I stared at him like he'd broken the rules. "Are you serious right now?" He swallowed hard. "I think I'm depressed." Something in me snapped into cruelty because depression meant responsibility, and responsibility meant my life would get messy. So I laughed. A short, dismissive laugh. "Everyone's depressed. Drink water." His face did something I'll never forget. Like a window closing. He didn't argue. He didn't plead. He just drove us home in silence, eyes forward, like I was a passenger he didn't know. Over the next month, he started changing in tiny ways. He slept. He stopped drinking with me. He started running in the mornings. He cleaned his apartment. He cooked real meals. I called it his midlife crisis and teased him about it. He'd just shrug. Then one day he smiled at his phone. Not at me, at his phone. I hated it instantly. "What's so funny?" I asked. "Nothing," he said, still smiling. "Just something good." I followed him into the kitchen. "Are you talking to someone?" He looked up, smile fading into that calm expression. "Why?" "Because you're acting weird." He nodded slowly like he was listening to a child. "I'm acting healthy." That word again. Healthy. Like I was a disease. 2 nights later, he sat me down and said, "I'm leaving. No anger, no drama. I don't want to be loved like a joke anymore." I laughed on reflex. "You'll be back." He smiled, soft, almost sad. "That's what you don't get." He grabbed his bag. I already left. The last image I have of him is standing in the doorway, smiling like someone walking into sunlight. I didn't chase him because I didn't want to look desperate. But when the door clicked shut, the silence hit different. It wasn't punishment. It was relief. His relief, and I wasn't part of it. Story 5. The first time he cried in front of me, I was 19 and convinced emotions were weakness. He was 21, sitting on the edge of my bed, shaking because his mom had just told him she was moving across the country with his little sister. "I feel like I'm losing them," he said. I laughed and flicked his forehead like he was a baby. "Stop. You're being dramatic." He smiled through it like it didn't hurt, but I saw his jaw tighten. After that, he cried less. Not because life got easier, because he stopped letting me see it. We stayed together for years, and I loved that version of him. The reliable one, the quiet one, the one who didn't burden me. I thought I'd won. Then I cheated. Not even a big scandal, just a stupid coworker, a stupid moment, and a stupid confession because I wanted to feel honest. He didn't yell. He didn't cry. He just stared at me like he was finally seeing the real shape of me. I tried to provoke him. "Say something. Aren't you mad?" He blinked slowly. "I'm tired," he said. I scoffed, trying to make it a joke. "Tired? That's your reaction?" He nodded. "I used to cry and you'd laugh, so I learned." He stood up. "I learned how to stop needing you." That sentence made my stomach drop. "You're being dramatic," I said. Same line, same tone, like muscle memory. And he did something I wasn't ready for. He smiled. Not smug, not cruel, peaceful. "I know," he said. "That's why it's so easy to go." I followed him around the apartment while he packed, flipping between begging and anger, trying every version of myself. Cute, mean, sexy, sad. He stayed calm through all of it, smiling politely when I tried to start a fight. At the door, I finally snapped. "So what? You're just going to be happy without me?" He looked at me like I'd asked if the sky was blue. "Yeah," he said simply. That was the whole point. He left, and I stood there realizing I'd spent years training him not to cry, only to act shocked when he stopped coming back. Story 6. I laughed at him in the worst possible place. My mom's living room. He'd driven an hour to apologize for being distant, and my mom kept hovering like she was supervising a breakup. He sat on the edge of the couch, twisting his keys, and finally said, "I think I'm drowning. and I don't know how to ask for help without feeling ashamed. I swear, something in me wanted to look strong in front of my mom. So I laughed. A little scoff with a smile. You're drowning? You have a job, a car, and a girlfriend. Relax. My mom smirked like I'd said something clever. He looked at me like I'd just translated our whole relationship into one sentence. Then he nodded, stood up, and said, okay, that was it. No argument. He walked out, and my mom said, finally, a man who doesn't cling. For 3 weeks, I felt powerful. I told everyone he was too emotional. I posted selfies. I went out. Then one day, I saw him at a cafe with his laptop, laughing with a barista. He looked open, like someone had loosened a knot in his chest. I walked in like I owned the air. Wow, you're smiling now. He turned, smiled politely. Hey, that's it? I scoffed. After everything, he took a sip of coffee, calm as a therapist. After everything, I realized I don't want to audition for love. I rolled my eyes. You're being dramatic. He nodded. Maybe, but I'm not miserable anymore. The barista called his name. He stood up, grabbed his cup, and the barista squeezed his shoulder as he passed. That tiny gesture hit harder than any insult. He looked back once, still smiling. Tell your mom thanks. Watching you laugh made leaving easy. I stood there burning because the part that broke me wasn't him leaving. It was him leaving without looking like it hurt. Story 7. We were in my car, parked outside his place. He'd just found out he didn't get the promotion he'd worked for all year. He was staring at the steering wheel like it betrayed him. I feel like such a failure, he whispered, voice cracking. I laughed because I thought confidence was something you forced into someone, like throwing cold water at their face. Oh my God, stop. It's not that deep. He blinked fast, trying to swallow it down. It is for me. Men really do crumble over everything, I said. Half joking, half mean. He didn't answer. Just nodded, got out, and walked inside. The next day, he didn't text. The next week, he didn't ask to see me. I started telling myself he was taking space, but it felt different. It felt like I'd been removed from his schedule. A month later, I got a notification. He'd posted for the first time in forever. A picture of him hiking, sweaty, smiling, captioned, learning to breathe again. People in the comments were cheering him on. Women I didn't recognize were calling him inspiring. I hate that I still remember the exact jealousy in my chest, like someone lit a match inside it. I messaged him, so you're just pretending you're happy now? He replied, not pretending, practicing. I shot back, you're acting like I was the problem. He left me on red for hours. Then, you weren't the only problem, but you were the loudest. That sentence made me furious because it was true. I wanted to argue, to pull him into the old loop where I could win by being sharper. Instead, he posted another photo a week later. Him smiling beside a group of guys, all of them holding coffee cups like a dumb ad. His smile looked easy, natural, like it belonged to him, not to me. And that's when it hit. I used to think his tears proved I mattered. His smile proved I didn't. Story 8. He cried during my birthday dinner. I still hear the clink of forks, the low restaurant music, the way the candlelight made everyone look kinder than they were. He leaned in and said, I can't keep trying to earn your softness. I laughed. Actually laughed because the sentence sounded like something from a movie. Are you serious? It's my birthday. His eyes went wet anyway. That's the point. It's always your day. My friends were watching, pretending not to. I felt heat crawl up my neck. So I did what I always did when I felt exposed. I turned him into a joke. Guys, I said, smiling too wide, he's having an emotional moment. A couple of people chuckled politely. He went pale. He stood up slowly, put cash on the table, and said, Happy birthday. His voice was steady, not angry. Steady. I expected him to come back, to text, to apologize for ruining my night. Instead, he blocked me everywhere. Not to punish me because he didn't want to hear me. Weeks later, I saw him at a mutual friend's house party. He was in the kitchen, laughing with someone new. Not flirting laughing. Real laughing. Like his lungs finally worked. I walked up, voice sugary. So you're fine now? He turned, smiled warmly. Yeah, I am. I hated the warmth. I wanted cold. I wanted pain. I wanted proof I still had influence. You moved on fast, I said. He nodded like I'd complimented him. I moved on the night you made me a punchline. My mouth opened, ready to snap back. But he was already turning away, still smiling, pouring himself a drink like I was just background noise. And for the first time I realized, being ignored hurts more when the person looks genuinely happy doing it. Story 9. We were on FaceTime when he cried. He was sitting on his bathroom floor, eyes red, voice shaking. I'm scared, he said. I keep having these thoughts like, what if I can't do life? I was in bed scrolling, annoyed that he'd interrupted my show. I laughed because I didn't know what else to do. You're being so dramatic. Get up. Take a shower. You'll be fine. He stared at me like he didn't recognize me. Can you just stay on the phone? I sighed. I'm not a therapist. He nodded slowly, wiped his face, and ended the call. After that, he changed the rules. No late-night calls. No checking in. No, I miss you. If I texted, he'd reply hours later with short, polite answers, like an email. I got angry. I sent paragraphs. I accused him of pulling away. He responded with one line, I'm protecting myself. Then one day he posted a photo, not of a new girlfriend, not of a trip, of a clinic bracelet on his wrist and a caption, first step. Everyone commented hearts and proud messages. I felt sick, not because he was getting help, but because I wasn't in the story anymore. I messaged him. Why didn't you tell me? He replied, you laughed, just that. 2 words. I tried to defend myself. I didn't mean it. I was uncomfortable. He answered, exactly. Months later, I saw him at the gym. He looked stronger, not in a flexing way, more like his posture had returned. He smiled at the front desk girl, thanked her, joked with a guy near the weights. He was present. He spotted me and smiled politely, like you smile at a stranger who held the door once. I walked over, voice shaking. So you're just happy now? He nodded. I'm okay, I whispered. And you don't miss me? He smiled again, soft, distant. I don't miss being laughed at. And he went back to his workout like my heartbreak was just another sound in the room. Story 10. I laughed when he cried because I thought tears were a manipulation tactic. My dad used to cry right before he lied, so I learned early. Don't fall for it. When my boyfriend cried, I assumed he was trying to control me. It happened after his best friend died. We were in his apartment, and he was staring at his phone like it might ring and undo reality. I keep expecting him to text me, he whispered. His voice cracked like glass. I laughed reflexively, sharp, defensive. He's not going to text you. Stop torturing yourself. He looked up, shocked. Why would you say it like that? Because someone has to be logical, I snapped. His eyes filled anyway. He covered his face, shoulders shaking, and I just stood there, annoyed, like grief was an inconvenience. He didn't break up with me that night. That came later, quietly, like a light being turned off. He started going to support groups. He started spending time with his friends' family. He started journaling. He started smiling again, small at first, then bigger. And the more he smiled, the more invisible I became. I'd sit beside him on the couch and he'd be present but not intimate, like I was furniture. Finally, I confronted him. Why are you acting like we're strangers? He looked at me for a long time, then smiled, sad but calm. Because when I was at my lowest, you didn't just fail me. You mocked me. I felt my throat tighten. I didn't know what to do. He nodded. I do now. He stood up, grabbed his jacket and said, I'm going to meet his mom for dinner. She likes when I tell stories about him. I blurted, so you'd rather be with her than with me? He smiled again, and it wasn't cruel. It was final. She doesn't laugh when I miss someone. Then he left, humming under his breath, like the world still had music in it, just not with me in the chorus. Story 11. I laughed when he cried because it made me feel untouchable. We were at his place, and he'd just opened a letter from his student loan company. His hands were shaking like the paper was on fire. I can't keep up, he said, voice breaking. I'm trying, but it's like I'm running and the finish line moves. I leaned against the counter, smirking. Welcome to adulthood. He looked up, eyes wet. I'm serious. I laughed again, meaner. So what? You want me to pat your head? You're a grown man. He went quiet after that. Not sulking, processing. He folded the letter carefully and put it away like he was putting away a version of himself. Weeks passed and he started doing things without me. Extra shifts, budgeting, cooking at home, saying no to trips. At first I complained because I missed the attention. He didn't argue. He just nodded and kept moving. Then came the first time he smiled at his phone and didn't show me why. That tiny boundary made me furious. I grabbed the phone out of his hand like I had rights. It was a group chat, money moves with his friends. They were hyping him up about paying off a chunk of debt and planning a cheap hike to celebrate. He'd replied with a selfie, sweaty, smiling. The kind of smile I hadn't seen in months. You have time for them, but not for me? I snapped. He didn't snatch the phone back. He just looked at me like I was loud background. They don't make me feel stupid for struggling. I tried to laugh it off. Oh my God, you're still on that? He smiled, soft and distant. Yeah, because it was the moment I realized love shouldn't feel like humiliation. 2 days later, he ended it. No screaming, no long speech. Just, I'm choosing a life where I'm allowed to be human. I called him dramatic. I called him weak. I even called him later, crying. begging him to come back. Ironic, right? He listened, quiet. Then he smiled through the phone. I could hear it. I hope you heal, he said. But I'm not coming back to the place I got laughed at. Story 12. He cried in front of my friends and I made sure everyone noticed. We were playing some dumb party game, truth or drink, and someone asked him, "What's your biggest fear?" He hesitated, and I already knew the answer. He'd told me weeks earlier. He was afraid he wasn't enough for anyone. He said it anyway, voice shaky. My biggest fear is I'll never be chosen. Like I'll always be the almost. The room went quiet. It was raw and uncomfortable, and honestly, it made me feel exposed because I was the one who kept him as almost. So I laughed. A big performative laugh. "Aw," I said, clapping like he'd told a joke. That's so sad. A couple people laughed with me out of reflex. He blinked, swallowed, and nodded like he deserved it. After that, something changed. He stopped trying to win my friends. He stopped trying to impress me. He stopped being available. If I asked to hang out, he'd say, "I already have plans." If I complained, he'd just shrug. Then I saw him one afternoon outside a bookstore, smiling at a girl with paint on her jeans. She was animated, hands moving, and he was listening, really listening, like her words mattered. I walked up, sharp as a blade. "So this is what you do now? Replace me?" He smiled politely, like a cashier dealing with a rude customer. "Hey," the girl looked uncomfortable and stepped back. He didn't chase her. He didn't panic. He didn't try to prove anything. He just looked at me and said, "I'm not replacing you. I'm moving forward." I scoffed. "Since when do you talk like that?" He smiled again, wider this time. "Since I stopped shrinking to fit your jokes." That's when it hit me. I used to have the power because he needed me. Now he didn't need me, and my words had no place to land. He picked up his bag, turned to the girl and said, "Sorry about that. Want to grab coffee?" And they walked away together while I stood there, realizing my laughter had trained him how to leave with a smile. Story 13. He cried in my driveway at 2 a.m. after I'd canceled on him for the third time that week. I'd told him I was too tired, but really I just didn't feel like being emotionally present. He stood under the streetlight, eyes glossy, and said, "Do you even like me anymore?" I laughed because the question felt pathetic. "Why are you being so needy?" His face crumpled a little. "I just want to know if I matter." I leaned on my car door, arms crossed. "If you mattered, you wouldn't be asking. You'd know." I still remember the silence after that. He looked down, nodded, and whispered, "Okay." The next day, he didn't text good morning. A week later, he didn't ask where I was. It felt like the universe had gone quiet, and at first I liked it. Then I started feeling itchy, like I'd lost a limb. A month later, I showed up to a mutual friend's birthday and saw him across the room. He was laughing, actually laughing, with a group of people, holding a soda like he didn't need liquid courage. His shoulders looked relaxed. He looked safe in his own skin. I went straight to him. "So you can laugh now, huh?" He smiled at me like I was an old acquaintance. "Yeah." I hated how calm he was. I tried to jab. "Let me guess, you found someone better." He shook his head, still smiling. I found myself. That was the upgrade. I rolled my eyes. "You're so corny." He chuckled, unbothered. "You would have roasted me for saying that before. That's why it feels good to say it now." My throat tightened. "So what? You're just never coming back?" He looked at me kindly, like you look at someone who doesn't understand a map. "I already left, remember? You just didn't notice because you were laughing." Then he turned away mid-conversation, not in a dramatic way, just naturally. Like my attention wasn't the prize anymore. And that's what broke me. Not that he moved on. That he moved on without needing me to witness it. Story 14. The day he cried, I was filming a TikTok. I was trying to get the lighting right, and he was sitting behind me on the bed, quiet for too long. Finally, he said, "I think I'm lonely even when I'm with you." I didn't even turn around. "Don't start." His voice cracked. "I'm serious." I laughed, still staring at myself in the screen. "You're lonely?" "I'm literally right here." He made this small sound, like a breath that hurt. "You're here, but you're not with me." I turned and snapped, "Why do you always need so much? It's exhausting." His eyes filled. He wiped them fast, embarrassed. And I laughed again, short and dismissive, because I didn't want to feel like the villain. He didn't yell. He didn't beg. He just stood up and walked into the bathroom, shutting the door. The next day, he started smiling more. At first, I thought it meant he'd gotten over it. But the smiles weren't for me. They were for his workouts, his friends, his new routine. He'd come home humming. He'd cook. He'd read. He'd look unbothered. I tried to reclaim him with little things, touching his arm, calling him babe, posting old pictures of us. He'd smile, but it was polite, like he was humoring me. One night I asked, "What's going on? Why are you acting like you don't care?" He smiled, gentle. "I care. Just not in a way that hurts anymore. My stomach dropped. Are you breaking up with me? He nodded. I'm choosing peace. I laughed, but it came out shaky. Peace? From me? He looked at me with the calmest eyes I've ever seen. I used to cry and you'd laugh because you didn't understand. Now I smile because I do. He packed while I spiraled. And when he walked out, he smiled at me. No bitterness, no rage, just relief. That smile haunted me more than any insult, because it meant he wasn't leaving to punish me. He was leaving to save himself. Story 15. He cried at my brother's wedding. Not loudly. Just standing outside the venue, shaking, trying to breathe. Eyes wet under the string lights. What's wrong with you? I hissed. People are going to see. He swallowed hard. I'm having a panic attack. I laughed under my breath, disgusted. You picked a great time. He looked at me like I'd shoved him. I can't control it. Then control it? I snapped. Go to the car. Don't ruin this. He walked away alone, shoulders hunched. I went back inside, danced, took pictures, smiled like everything was perfect. I told people he had a stomach thing. I made it sound normal. On the drive home, he didn't speak. His eyes were red, but he didn't let a single tear fall. I remember thinking, good. He finally got it. The next weeks were weird. He started going to the gym at 6 a.m. He stopped drinking. He stopped asking me to talk. He started therapy without telling me. I found out because I saw a reminder on his calendar. Since when do you go to therapy? I asked, half laughing. He smiled, calm. Since I realized I deserve support. I rolled my eyes. From strangers? He nodded. From people who don't mock me. That stung, so I went colder. I tried to punish him with distance. But he didn't chase. He didn't panic. He just kept smiling, like he'd already accepted a future without me. A month later, he sat me down and said, I'm leaving. His voice didn't shake. I tried to laugh it off. You won't? He smiled wider. That's what you always thought. I felt my eyes burn. So you're just happy now? He nodded once. Simple. I'm getting there. Then he stood up, kissed my forehead like I was a relative, and walked out. I didn't hear the door slam. I heard the quiet click of someone choosing themselves. Finally. And it was the first time silence sounded like a verdict. Story 16. He cried in the parking lot behind my job, hands on his knees like he couldn't breathe. I was late, annoyed, mascara perfect, phone already in my hand. I think I messed up, he said. I told my boss I could handle the project alone, and I can't. I'm drowning. I laughed because I was embarrassed for him. Are you crying over work? He looked up, eyes wet. It's not just work, it's everything. I'm trying so hard to be someone you won't get bored of. That hit a nerve, so I made it a joke. Well, crying isn't exactly hot. His face went still. Like a switch flipped, and the lights behind his eyes just dimmed. He nodded once, wiped his cheeks, and said, okay, got it. After that, he stopped showing me his weak moments. Actually, he stopped showing me anything. He didn't ask to see me. Didn't double text. Didn't try to win me back after arguments. He started sleeping earlier, eating better, going for runs, turning his phone face down when we were together. One night, I tried to pick a fight because I missed the version of him that begged. Who are you talking to? He smiled at me, calm, almost friendly. My team. Your team? I snapped. Since when do you have a team? Since I stopped trying to do everything alone, he said. Then he added gently, including you. The next morning, I woke up to an empty side of the bed and a note on the counter. I'm done auditioning. Don't come to my place. I went anyway. Knocked, texted, called, nothing. 2 days later, I saw him in the lobby of my building, carrying a box, laughing with the concierge like they were old friends. I rushed over, heart pounding. You're just smiling now? He turned to me and smiled wider, like sunlight. Yeah. After what you said? After you left? He shifted the box in his arms. I left because of what you said. He stepped into the elevator, hit the button, and while the doors closed, he looked right at me, still smiling. Not bitter. Not sad. Finished. Story 17. He cried on a Tuesday morning over pancakes. I remember because I was annoyed the syrup was dripping and he was ruining breakfast with emotions. I didn't get in, he said, voice cracking. The program. I failed the entrance exam. I snorted. You're crying because you failed a test? He nodded, embarrassed. It was my shot. I studied for months. I laughed, sharper than I meant. Maybe you're just not built for it. Not everyone's meant to be impressive. The word impressive landed like a punch. He went quiet, stared at the plate, and then smiled. Tiny, weird. Okay, he whispered. Thanks. That week, he didn't ask for comfort. He didn't ask for anything. He just disappeared into himself. I figured he'd come crawling back once he missed me. Instead, he took the exam again 3 months later. I didn't even know until I saw a post. A photo of him in a suit, holding an acceptance letter. grinning so hard his cheeks looked sore. People were cheering in the comments. He looked proud. Clean. Free. I DM'd him. So you're smiling now like you didn't fall apart? He replied, I did fall apart. Just not in front of you anymore. That pissed me off. I showed up at his celebration dinner, uninvited, like a storm with lipstick. I walked right up, voice sweet. Congrats. Guess you finally became impressive. He turned, took one look at me and smiled. Not nervous. Not hungry. A calm, adult smile. Thank you, he said, then glanced past me to his friends. Hey, can we take that group picture now? He didn't introduce me. Didn't explain me. Didn't even pause his life for me. The camera flashed. His smile stayed locked in place. And I stood there in the background realizing I'd turned his tears into fuel, and now I wasn't invited to the fire. Story 18. He cried at an open mic night, backstage, not on stage, which somehow felt worse. I'd pressured him into performing because I thought it would be cute, and I wanted to post it. He came off stage shaky, sweating, eyes glassy. I forgot half the lyrics, he whispered. I embarrassed myself. I laughed, loud, because I didn't want anyone to see my boyfriend falling apart. Babe, it was so bad, I said, grinning like it was a joke we shared. Like, painfully bad. He stared at me, stunned. Why would you say that? Relax, I said. It's not that serious. Everyone sucks their first time. His mouth trembled. He turned away, wiping his face, and I rolled my eyes like he was being dramatic. After that, he stopped inviting me anywhere. He still went out, but I was never part of it. If I asked, he'd say, it's a guy's night, or it's just a thing. A thing? Like I was too heavy to carry to the fun. Then one night, I saw him on someone's story again. Another open mic. But this time, he was on stage, confident, smiling between lines. The crowd was laughing with him, not at him. Someone yelled his name and he smiled like he belonged there. I showed up the next week, ready to reclaim my seat in his life. When he walked off stage, I stepped forward. Hey, you're good now? He looked at me like he was surprised I existed. Then he smiled, polite. Yeah, I'm good, I tried to joke. So you don't need me laughing at you anymore? He didn't flinch. I don't need you, period. That stung so hard I got angry. Wow, ego got big. He smiled again, calm as a locked door. No, my standards did. Then a girl wrapped him in a quick hug. Nothing dramatic, just familiar. He hugged her back, still smiling, and walked past me like I was a stranger who'd asked for directions. The mic squealed as the next performer started, and my stomach dropped because I finally understood I wasn't his audience anymore. I was his warning. Story 19. He cried at the airport gate, and I laughed because I hated messy goodbyes. I was moving for 6 months, and he was talking like the world was ending. I don't want you to go, he said, voice breaking. I feel stupid crying, but I smirked. You do look kind of stupid. His eyes snapped to mine. Seriously? Come on, I said, waving my boarding pass like a flag. It's 6 months. Don't be clingy. He wiped his face fast, swallowing hard. Okay, I'll stop. The flight was fine. The first week away, I expected him to blow up my phone. Instead, he texted like a coworker. Hope you landed safe. Have a good day. No hearts. No desperation. No begging. I tried to pull him back into the old dynamic. Started fights, posted thirst traps, left him on red. He didn't chase. He didn't spiral. He just stayed, steady. 2 months in, I called him crying after a bad day. Desperate for the comfort I denied him. Can you just talk to me? He was quiet. Then I heard it. A smile in his voice. Not cruel. Certain. I can't be your emergency contact anymore. I went home early, convinced I could fix it in person. I pictured a movie moment. Me running into his arms, him cracking, forgiving me. At the airport, I spotted him near the arrivals berry. For 1 second, my heart lifted, until I saw the flowers weren't for me. He was holding them loosely, smiling at someone beside him. I pushed through the crowd. You're here? He turned and smiled when he saw me. A small, polite smile, like the one you give an old neighbor. Hey, he said, my throat tight. Why are you smiling like that? He glanced at the person beside him, someone I didn't know, then back at me. Because it's over, he said softly. And I'm okay. The loudspeaker announced another flight. People surged. He stepped back behind the barrier, still smiling. And I stood on the wrong side of glass, watching him not look back even once. Story 20. He cried the night my friends roasted him at my apartment. They weren't even subtle, joking about his job, his clothes, the way he talked. He tried to laugh along until his voice cracked. He went quiet, eyes wet, and whispered to me in the kitchen, "Can we go?" Please. I glanced at the living room, at my friends watching, waiting to see who I'd choose. So I laughed, right in his face. "Oh my God, you're going to cry because of a joke? It doesn't feel like a joke," he said. I leaned in, smiling like poison. "Then toughen up." He swallowed, nodded once, and walked out without a scene. No slam, no shouting, just gone. The next morning he texted, "I'm done." I replied with a laughing emoji, because I thought that's how you win. I thought he'd come back mad. He didn't. A week later, I heard from a mutual friend he was throwing a small get-together at his new place. New place. He'd moved. I showed up anyway, dressed like regret and confidence. The door opened and there he was. Standing in warm light, music behind him, people laughing inside. He saw me and smiled. I stepped forward, voice shaking. "So you're hosting parties now? You're fine?" He nodded, still smiling. "Yeah," I tried the old script. "You're really going to pretend you don't care?" He didn't argue. He just held the door with one hand and said, "I cared when it mattered. My eyes burned. Can we talk?" He smiled wider, gentle and final. "We are." Then he looked past me into the room and called, "Hey, she's here. Can someone grab the drinks from the fridge?" Like I was an announced guest, not a threat, not a heartbreak. Just a person at the door. Someone inside laughed, the kind of laugh that belongs to a life you're not part of. He kept smiling as he slowly closed the door. And this time, I didn't hear it click, I felt it. Story 21. He cried in my passenger seat after his sister called him worthless. We'd just left his parents' house, and he was staring out the window like he was trying to outrun the words. "I try so hard," he whispered, "and it's never enough." I laughed because family drama made me uncomfortable and I wanted out. "Oh my God, you're taking it so personally." He turned to me, eyes wet. "It is personal. Everyone's family is messed up," I said, laughing like I'd solved it. "Grow up." He didn't yell. He didn't defend himself. He just nodded, wiped his face, and stared straight ahead. The silence on the drive home felt like punishment. But it wasn't. It was him deciding something. For weeks he stopped reacting. If I made a mean joke, he'd just say, "Okay." If I criticized him, he'd go, "Noted." It drove me insane because there was nothing to fight. Then I saw him at a family barbecue, his family's, smiling. Like actually smiling, talking to his dad, laughing with his sister, the same sister who'd gutted him. My first thought was, he's forgiven them faster than he forgave me. I pulled him aside. "So you're good with them now?" He smiled calmly. "I set boundaries," I scoffed. "And what about me?" He didn't flinch. "I set boundaries with you too." My stomach dropped. "That's not fair." He tilted his head, still smiling. "You laughed at me when I was bleeding. They hurt me, but they didn't mock me for hurting." That was the moment I realized I wasn't competing with his family. I was competing with his self-respect, and I was losing. He walked back to the picnic table, still smiling, and sat beside his dad like he belonged there. I stood alone by the fence, watching him act like a man who'd finally stopped begging for a softer world. Story 22. He cried in the middle of IKEA. Not even joking. We were lost in the maze, fighting about a bookshelf, and he just stopped walking. His eyes got glossy and his voice cracked. "I feel like no matter what I do, you're disappointed," he said quietly. I stared at him like he'd chosen to be dramatic on purpose. Then I laughed. "You're crying in IKEA." "Please." His face flushed. "I'm not trying to—" "You're embarrassing," I said, laughing harder because two strangers were glancing over. "Just pick a shelf." He swallowed, nodded, and pushed the cart forward. He didn't bring it up again. Not that day. Not the next. But after that, he started changing in a way I didn't notice until it was too late. He stopped asking my opinion on everything. He stopped trying to fix my moods. He stopped checking if I was happy. One night I came over and his place looked different. Cleaner, calmer. There were plants, a whiteboard with a routine, a calendar on the fridge. He looked organized. "Who are you?" I joked. He smiled. "Someone who wants peace." Then I saw the ring in his nightstand by accident. Not an engagement ring. One of those cheap silicone bands people wear at the gym. It had a date written on the inside. "What's that?" I asked. He didn't panic. He just smiled. "It's a reminder." "A reminder of what?" He shrugged. "The day I decided I won't beg to be liked." My chest tightened. "So you don't like me?" He smiled again, gentle. "I care about you. But I don't want a life where I'm crying in a store and you're laughing because strangers are watching." 2 weeks later, he moved out. No big scene. Just gone. And the worst part? When I ran into him months after, he was smiling in the aisle. Same place, different store, holding a lamp, laughing with a friend. He looked at me, nodded politely, and kept smiling like I was just another display. Story 23. He cried at my graduation photo shoot. Everyone was adjusting my cap, fixing my hair, hyping me up, and he stood behind the camera holding my purse like an extra. When the photographer asked him to take a picture with me, he hesitated. His hands shook a little. After the shutter clicked, he whispered, "I don't think you see me anymore." I laughed because I felt annoyed. "Why are you doing this today?" He swallowed, eyes wet. "Because it hurts today." My friends heard, and the air got tense. I felt their eyes on me like a spotlight, waiting to see if I'd be the supportive girlfriend or the one who kept things fun. So I chose fun. I laughed and said, "He's having a moment. Ignore him." The photographer awkwardly checked his camera. Someone changed the subject. He stood there, blinking hard, face red. Later that night, he texted, "I'm going to take some space." I replied, "LOL, okay." I meant it as power. Like, you can't hurt me. The next day, he blocked me. Every platform, every app. Like I was spam. I got angry. Not because I missed him, because I couldn't reach him. Months later, I found him at a mutual friend's dinner. He walked in, smiling, carrying dessert like he belonged. People hugged him. People laughed at his jokes. He looked relaxed in a way I'd never seen. I pulled him aside. "So you're just fine now? You're smiling like nothing happened?" He smiled softly. "I'm smiling because something happened." I frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I stopped chasing someone who needed an audience more than a partner." I tried to scoff, but my throat was tight. "You're being dramatic." He nodded, still smiling. "I know. You always said that. That's why I had to leave." Then he walked back into the room and started telling a story, and everyone leaned in to listen. I stood in the doorway, realizing I wasn't the main character anymore. I was the chapter he skipped. Story 24. He cried after I read his journal. I didn't even mean to. At least that's what I told myself. It was on the coffee table, open, like it wanted to be found. There were pages about anxiety, about nightmares, about how he felt small around me. It made me furious because it sounded like blame. So when he came home and saw it in my hands, I laughed. "Wow," I said, waving the notebook. "You're really like this?" His face drained. "You read it?" I laughed again, defensive. "It's not that serious. It's just whining." His eyes filled instantly. That was the only place I felt safe. I rolled my eyes. "Don't be dramatic." He sat down slowly, shoulders shaking, and cried into his palms. And I remember feeling this cold disgust. Like his sadness was messy, and I didn't want it on me. The next morning, he was quiet. Not angry, focused. He asked for the journal back politely. He started locking his phone. He stopped sharing his thoughts. He stopped saying, "I love you" first. A week later, he was smiling more. That should have comforted me. Instead, it terrified me because the smile didn't ask permission. I cornered him in the hallway. "Why are you acting so happy all of a sudden?" He smiled, calm. "Because I don't tell you things anymore." My stomach dropped. "That's not healthy." He nodded. "It's healthier than giving you my insides and watching you laugh at them." 2 days later, he moved his stuff out while I was at work. He left the journal on the counter, closed, with a sticky note. "For your entertainment." I cried when I found it. I actually cried. And it hit me like a cruel joke. I finally understood the feeling. The exact second it no longer mattered to him. Story 25. He cried in the middle of an argument and I laughed because I thought I'd won. We were fighting about something stupid. Me flirting, him overreacting. The usual loop. "I'm trying," he said, voice cracking. "I'm trying to be enough for you." I laughed, triumphant. "See? You admit it. You're insecure." He stared at me like he was watching a building collapse. "That's what you heard?" I shrugged, still smiling. "Well, yeah." He wiped his face, stood up, and started putting on his shoes. No yelling. No slam. Just movement. "What are you doing?" I snapped. He smiled. It was small at first, then steadier. "Leaving," I scoffed. "You always say that." He nodded, still smiling. "I know. That's why you don't take it seriously." I followed him to the door, panic rising. "Stop being dramatic." He paused with his hand on the knob and looked at me. Really looked at me, for the first time in a long time. "You laugh when I cry," he said softly. "So I learned to smile when I leave." My throat tightened. "So you're just going to be happy without me?" He smiled wider, like someone stepping out of a storm. "I'm already happier." He opened the door, and before he stepped out, he said one last thing that felt like a curse. "You can keep winning arguments. I'm going to win my life." Then he left, still smiling, and I stood there in my own apartment, quiet, victorious, and completely alone, finally realizing I'd laughed my way out of love.